had a disconnect along the way that we need to rectify.
Thank you. I really wanted to respond to a couple of things. I wanted to go for the microfinance issues. The country like us, the microfinance was very popular, or that we have one person who won Nobel Prize. From my experience, microfinance has two faces. It is really two faces of the coin. When it says that it's created women's empowerment or their entrepreneurship, but on the other hand, I have seen that it has put women in the poor to ultra poor, and also created violence, against women. Like mostly these because these the microfinance, it is the beneficiaries, the women in the front line. Okay, so the husbands made these women to get money from the microfinance and give it to them, rather than putting money for any business. I have seen many women has been even suicided. They had to sell whatever they had in their household to give money to them. It is because of, I would say like it's happened the lack of proper monitoring. I have seen many of them borrowed, took money from microfinance, and rather than buying a cow, they bought a television. So that is just my experience with microfinance. But it has some good in some point I have seen that there is some women also created their own entrepreneurship, but the rare success cannot be the example anyway. Second, I know that the Anita will be respond to, but I just wanted to touch base that any voluntary approach do not have the workers, the women's back in the country like in Bangladesh. When government is highly corrupted, they have a collusion with the factory owners. Like 10% of our factory owners, they sit in the parliament. Literally, we are fighting with our legislator at the same time with the owner. So, and we have been experiencing these brands' code of conduct and their CSR policy, which always sounds great. They already fail to save workers' lives. And if we talk about web principle, if we talk about the Beijing Plus, we are really far away from women empowerment with all this, because we don't know how long it will be even take to enforce all those voluntary peace in Bangladesh. And finally, what consumers can do, okay? First thing, not buying is not the solution. We know that, if we talk about like food, we know that there is many farmers are in a miserable condition. Maybe the tomato pickers are not getting enough money, but we still need to buy the ketchup, right? So we cannot be nude, we need to buy the clothes, but we definitely can be a responsible consumers, and how we can do that. So please buy the clothes that made in Bangladesh, or Cambodia or China, whatever it is, okay? Though the working conditions are not super different in those countries, but buy with conscience, buy with responsibility and accountability. Whenever you go to the store, ask more than a question like how much it is. Ask more than that. That hey, I wanted to know more about these workers who made my clothes. Maybe the people in the room, we are thinking that hey, my one voice will not make any difference, but in this room I think we are 150 now, and we all have friends. If we all do together, like whenever we go to the store, just leave a message to the store manager, freak them out, okay? I'm getting many more news from the consumers. They're asking more about about these workers, about their wages. Tell me more about it. They're going to ask to their, store manager definitely will ask their supervisor or their headquarter. So we all together can make this change that, these companies will ensure that workers are respected. So one, the consumer can ensure that raising their voice regarding what the condition is. You consumers definitely can raise your voice to the companies who haven't signed on the Accord on Bangladeshi fire and building safety. It's a good set of precedents which can be bring to cross-border. Nowadays for Bangladesh, we definitely can bring it to the India or China or Cambodia or maybe in Latin America, right? because it's a legally binding piece. So we can do that. And when I said jobs with dignity, what I really meant that. I meant the jobs with dignity can come with a decent wage. The wage we're making now, it is not decent. So the buyers, the brands, just need to add few cents more and ensure that money goes to the workers' pocket, not to the factory owners. So if we have a living wage, it is a 1% of the jobs with dignity. I'm talking about a code that will ensure a safe workplace for Bangladeshi workers. That is jobs with dignity. Gender-based, the violence-free workplace or friendly workplace. The brand, all the COC, the brand's code of conduct, it says that there should not be any discrimination against women in the factories, but it is voluntary. So that's never been complied. So we need to put these, more enforceable way. So we can ask these brands that they should do that in an enforceable way, so the women workers can get a gender-based violence-free workplace. And of course, we need to put pressure on our government from the top. It is a kind of top-bottom, pressure. Like consumers can pressure in their way, and workers, we can raise our voice that we want gender-based violence-free workplace. So in that way, we can do that. And in the end, the union voice at workplace. We have pretty good law, but which say that we can organize and bargain with our respective factory owners, but we are not free to do that. Whenever we try to organize, we have been beaten, threatened, falsified, charged. Consumer, what they can do? One, there is a lot of trade privilege that goes to my country from US, like GSP. From Canada, they have GSP without worker rights piece. So, and also the EU, they are providing the GSP as well. So through these, business pressure, they, the countries and the consumers both have leverage. Governments and the consumers both have leverage to put pressure onto the Bangladeshi government that workers should be free to exercise their union. So this is what consumers can do. Lots of tasks. Thank you.
Well, very briefly on the question that was directed to me. Well, we have been assisting in recent years, in the last year, to media campaign, public opinion being pressed often by government or by politicians, because there's the need to reduce the public sector. Public sector traditionally has been, at least in developed countries, one of the major area for women employment. And what we have to recognize now that due to this pressure and due to the emphasis on reducing the public spending, wages have been dropping in these sectors. Mainly, I think, in health sector, in many countries, we are now facing really dramatic situation where workers are, and mainly are women working on very, very low wages. It's not comparable maybe with the $68 that in the garment sector in Bangladesh. But if I think to Mozambique, if I think to many countries in Africa, the health workers are among the worst paid around the world. I don't want to mention in which condition and with which wages many of the nurses migrating around the world are obliged to work, and how they are affecting the stability of our collective bargaining systems in volunteering, also in developed countries. But to be honest, and not to put the blame only on the other, but also to look at ourselves, unfortunately, I have to say that I saw in my experience many collective agreements where women that are maybe focusing too much on, productivity incentives or on presence incentives where there is a high work density, human work density in the job, where inevitably women are penalized because of the fact that not always, even if there are law protecting maternity or childcare, often they have to leave the work. I think that all the suggestions that Shona gave in her presentation are what we have to follow, but also to follow how they are implemented. Before moving to my new position as General Secretary of Public Services International, we developed a survey among the affiliates in my home union in Italy. And in Italy we have a law protecting parenthood, accessing also, allowing also men to take care of child. Well, the majority of our members were not aware of this law. And the majority of the men, when asked, but now that you know, you would use, the answer was no, because I'm going to be penalized in my career. So the problem is not only providing law, but also monitoring. And this, I think, is a task. It's a task of union at the workplace to be more proactive in that direction. That will help women very much. When there are law, use it, and use it at the best. Thank you. Oh, sorry, just if I can, just 1 minute to, I don't remember your name, the guy who raised the issue of governments, local government, thank you, and how they can do it. I think that the role of local government is crucial, is strategic, because this is the closest place governing institution closest to people, closest to citizens. Unfortunately, we have been assisting in the last year to several reforms that are subtracting power to local government, centralizing due to the austerity constraint, due to the fiscal constraints, and all these things at a national level. And as I said before, there's strong pressure that is put on national government by multinational. I think that this is raised, and the process of urbanization, the metropolitanization of all our cities around the world is putting a strong accent to the need to rethink the role of local government, and I would say in general, rethink the governance of our world. All the institutions that we have at international level, the Bretton Woods system is, showing to be a bit unstable, to be fair, but at the same time, the need to rethink how we put the power to decide about how to rethink our society and the community. And this is not only a problem of institutional architecture. This is truly a problem of democracy, and democracy is threatened.
Maybe I'll just quickly second Rosa's comment about how important cities are as one of the many regional and local actors. I would say, particularly in contexts where many or most livelihoods are carried out in public space, it's essential to have cities recognize that, for example, criminalizing the use of public space for livelihoods really is not going to solve the employment problem, right? There needs to be some way of balancing the needs of people to engage in livelihoods that take place in public space and for the broader collective needs. And above and beyond workers who use public spaces for livelihoods, there's also a real need for cities to think about sort of managing or merging things like infrastructure projects with the employment imperatives that are kind of in front of us today. So, for example, with the transport system, how do you make a transport system much more equitable so that it doesn't serve mainly or mostly or almost or exclusively the interests of elites only? You know, if one of your goals is employment, there needs to be a way to get all people to all forms of jobs, or to markets, or to, you know, to source goods, or to sell them. That those needs to be taken into account, and it's, you know, those balancing those imperatives is something that is a real challenge for cities now. And I would also just say that, you know, on regional actors, you know, let's not forget the non-state actors, regional and local actors, and particularly some of the very interesting alliances that that are forming in the world of work, particularly between you know, sort of formal sector trade unions and informal sector networks and cooperatives and things like that. The role of unions has been essential in establishing and nurturing some of the biggest informal workers movements in the world. So let's keep in mind also the non-state actors, and particularly those opportunities for articulation between different types of workers who have a common interest.